On this edition of Sightings, 12 years ago, a roll of film surfaced with documents that revealed the existence of a shadow government charged with hiding the truth about extraterrestrials.
If this is genuine, why, it's dynamite, like the smoking gun.
Some say it was the deadliest high-rise fire in history that's caused the hauntings at a city hall in Brazil.
This building belongs to the people, and the people have the right to know.
Kristen was her oldest child, and hopefully she's still alive.
She was a young and beautiful student with a brilliant future until she vanished without a trace. Now, police and family have asked Sightings to help.
The ranchers are frustrated.
Cattle mutilations in New Mexico have reached epidemic proportions, and ranchers know something's got to be done. And is hard science finally solving the great mysteries of the Sphinx?
Welcome to Sightings. I'm Tim White. The alleged crash of an extraterrestrial spacecraft near Roswell, New Mexico has become the touchstone of modern ufology. Hard evidence remains elusive as years of speculation and theory have all come up just a little bit short. Now, a sheaf of documents that surfaced more than a decade ago is leading some experts to believe that not only have extraterrestrials visited our planet, but also that the U.S. government has known about it from day one.
If one accepts for even a moment the premise that we've been visited, that an alien was here, that bodies have been found, there would have to be a control group established to examine, understand, and determine what the makeup of it is and what the motivations are and what our vulnerability is.
UFO investigator Jamie Chanderay believes that proof of just such a group does exist in the form of authentic-looking documents sent to him on film in December 1984. The film, whose sender is unknown to this day, contained astounding images, pages from a 1952 briefing document meant for President-elect Dwight D. Eisenhower. The memo describes a secret government UFO team working on the Roswell crash, a shadow cabinet codenamed Majestic, or MJ-12. This document also informs Eisenhower about the discovery of wreckage and alien bodies near Roswell. Explosive revelations delivered to Chanderay by an anonymous source.
It was very interesting to me because it was analogous to Watergate in the sense that there was a deep throat who wanted to share information. And ultimately that process led to the arrival of the MJ-12 documents.
More documents were to follow, and Chanderay suspects he was chosen to receive them because he was known within the intelligence community as a fair and impartial investigator of UFO phenomena.
I'm a skeptic. You have to be a skeptic. You can't simply buy out. This isn't a belief system. It has nothing to do with a belief system. It isn't a religion. That's not what we're dealing with. If it exists, then there's a way to prove it. And that's what the game is all about.
Physicist Bruce Maccabee believes the MJ-12 documents are significant, but he's holding out for hard evidence.
You can have sightings up the wazoo. You can always get an expert to explain it, even if he has to hoke up an explanation. Now, if MJ-12 is real, their main problem was keeping track of the hardware so that we could study it, learn it, without letting the absolute proof get out. Remember, it's the absolute proof. It's the bodies and hardware that cannot be duplicated here on Earth, which conclusively proves this stuff is real.
The government's a multi-headed dragon, and sections of that change every 4 years. So you have this constant change going on of musical chairs. So if a group is going to indeed control this information in some fashion, it has to be a group that is in place continuously. With that kind of control comes the danger always. Well, who watches the watchers? Forget the motivations of the aliens for a moment. What's the motivations of those that control the information?
Veteran UFO researcher Stanton Friedman believes that MJ-12 would have been motivated to keep quiet about advanced alien technology in order to protect national security in the tense Cold War standoff following World War II.
There was a real belief in Washington that when Stalin got ready, he would attack. That was a general consensus. that we were going to be in a battle to the end with the Soviet Union. And therefore, any kind of technological advantage we could get would be well worth having, and you couldn't possibly release that information to anybody.
In researching his book on the Majestic 12 documents, Friedman meticulously verified every detail within the Eisenhower document. He investigated each supposed member of the group and found that they were the best and brightest military minds of the day, including Secretary of Defense James Forstall, high-ranking Army, Navy, and Air Force officers, and the first 4 directors of Central Intelligence. Only one name on the list didn't seem to fit. Publicly, MJ-12 member Dr. Donald Menzel was an astronomer at Harvard and a rabid UFO debunker.
Menzel, in his position at Harvard, was in a perfect position to act as the astronomer telling the world this is all nonsense. Nothing to do with anything. This isn't real. We've got explanations for everything, which is what he did say.
And I have found that his explanations are just plain wrong when you analyze them carefully. As a matter of fact, you get the impression that here was a top-notch scientist treating this subject totally unscientifically, trying to think up anything that he could do to snow the public, as it were, with an explanation, even if it made no sense.
You know, it might seem, well, why would he be lying? Why would he do this? And others would defend him, say, oh, he wouldn't do this and he wouldn't do that. Well, of course he would. He absolutely would, as would every single one of those individuals, and they wouldn't tell their wives or anything else, because that was what was important for their country.
Along with the Eisenhower briefing document, both Chandray and Friedman have found cryptic references to MJ-12 in declassified government documents, but nothing has bolstered the authenticity of MJ-12 more than this. More anonymous films sent to ufologist Don Berliner in 1994. On it, a supposed military field manual dated 1954.
This was a set of instructions, really, to retrieval teams who would be at the scene soon after an event took place in which a saucer had crashed and in which there were bodies and wreckage. How to wrap them, what kind of boxes to use, where to send the pieces, what the cover stories were. And one of the things that comes through loud and clear is they wouldn't have put such a manual together unless this had happened more than once. Which makes you wonder, so how many of the crashes were there? How many bodies were retrieved?
For verification of the new manual, Friedman turned to a former colleague, retired McDonnell Douglas scientist Dr. Robert Wood. If Wood, an expert in the detection of forged documents, could authenticate the manual, Friedman felt he would have proof of a government alien conspiracy.
My initial reaction when I first saw them was, if this is genuine, why, it's dynamite, like the smoking gun.
Dr. Wood was painstaking in his examination of the document pages, comparing it to an authentic Army field manual from the same period. The size of both manuals was identical, conforming to the standard 6:9 ratio for government field manuals of the era. And Dr. Wood examined this seal, which other experts insist is proof that this manual is a fake.
If you look at the front of this document, at the bottom, there's a logo that says War Department. And the War Department was actually eliminated at the end of World War II. So you'd expect they would have stopped using the logo. But in fact, the Army, in its field manuals, continued to use the War Department logo up until as late as 1960. And we have exact copies of such manuals.
If these documents are genuine, they prove the case. You don't need anything more.
And, Friedman says, we are not the only ones who will suffer from continued secrecy.
I think one of the reasons they're coming here is to make sure we don't go out, to take our brand of friendship, namely hostility, other places. This is truly a primitive society whose major activity is tribal warfare. So I don't think we can expect aliens to deal with us as equals. We're not. We haven't earned our place at the Galactic Federation Round Table.
Both Stanton Friedman and Jamie Chandray believe the clandestine Majestic 12 still exists today. Chandray also told Sightings that he believes the U.S. Air Force will soon release MJ-12 documents of its own, which will profoundly change the way the world views the UFO phenomenon.
Next, no one believed Sao Paulo's City Hall was haunted until this city councilman's frightening encounter.
Then I heard voices. He said, there's nobody in the building except you and us.
It's not hard to imagine ghosts and apparitions appearing in the halls of an old English castle or a grand southern mansion. But what about a modern skyscraper? Well, just such a haunting is occurring right now in Sao Paulo, Brazil. Researchers in the world's most populous city are investigating ghostly activity that has overtaken the newly constructed Sao Paulo City Hall. The ghosts have always been here. It is only the buildings that are new. Buried beneath the concrete and steel of Sao Paulo's central district is the sacred burial ground called the Valley of the Spirits. When the Portuguese first settled here, they enslaved the native population, a crime for which, legend tells us, the spirits will forever take revenge. Some say the spirits were vengeful on this day in 1974. In a high-rise built in the heart of the Valley of the Spirits, a devastating fire took nearly 200 lives. Victims had to choose between burning where they stood or leaping to their death. Right next door to the site of Sao Paulo's worst fire disaster, City Hall was used as a temporary morgue, and some believe the vengeful spirits may have followed because strange things are now happening there.
Eu vim aqui às 8 horas da manhã, como faço todos os dias.
I came here at 8 o'clock, as I do every day. Put water on this table, and the telephone was dialing by itself.
Eu abri a sala 1216.
That night, I started to work on the 12th floor, room 1216. I heard a noise. It sounded like the file drawers opening and closing. I turned the lights on, but there was nobody there.
I was on the 12th floor, and I came down and stopped at the 5th floor. The passengers got into the elevator, and that's when it occurred. One came and was standing right beside me. The other one went to the back of the elevator, and the third, when he got in, he disappeared.
Disembodied voices, footsteps, apparitions. They were all dismissed as simple superstition until one of Sao Paulo's city councilmen went public with his frightening encounters.
I've been working as a councilman for over 3 years, and I have never witnessed anything unusual. The press started asking questions, and I had to tell them the truth. After all, this building belongs to the people, and the people have the right to know.
A city engineer and elected government official, Faria Lima, had of course heard the rumors and fears about vengeful spirits marking City Hall for the next disaster. And for a long time, he was one of the non-believers. But a few months ago, leaving his deserted office well after midnight, Faria Lima changed his mind.
When I tried to open the door, it didn't open. The lock is rounded and it was facing my way. Then I heard voices. At first, I was angry. People are locking the doors and playing with me. I called security and 2 guards came and opened the door, easily. I asked them who was making all the noise and why there was a crowd in the corridor. The answer? Nobody's in the corridor, sir. But I heard them dragging furniture, I said. He said, there's nobody in the building except you and us. The last person left an hour ago.
Once Faria Lima went public with the story of his ghostly encounter, other reluctant witnesses came forward too.
No one believed these simple people. But when a councilman, an authority figure, decided to talk, they began to believe the things that were being told.
Faria Lima has chosen to take a scientific approach to the haunting. He cleared the way for Brazil's premier ghostbusters to investigate the phenomena here, Sao Paulo's Institute for Interdisciplinary Research into Parapsychology.
We have 5 hypotheses, and we are trying to test each one. The first one is the fraud. Maybe someone is tricking or is joking with someone. The second is maybe people have psychological, psychiatric problems and they are seeing things that doesn't exist.
Like their colleagues in the United States and Great Britain, Sao Paulo Institute researchers also examine a third possibility, that magnetic field anomalies could be responsible for the haunting activity. And they conduct interviews to explore the psychic abilities of the eyewitnesses.
There is a possibility of 2 people at the same time having a hallucination. So sometimes seeing a ghost is nothing more than a psychic image that shows itself in the shape of a ghost. I believe that all these phenomena that people relate may have psychic explanations.
Sightings was invited to observe the techniques used by the Institute's academic researchers during one of many overnight investigations they hope to conduct here.
Tonight we collected some data, we made some interviews, and we used some instruments to see the level of magnetic fields here in the building and about radiation and things like that.
Está desativado, mas ele está com corrente passando. Nós utilizamos aqui na câmara.
We use equipment that is being used by engineers and physicists that help us with our analysis. The gear can tell us if anything is being misinterpreted.
Na verdade, nosso início.
This was the beginning of our research and allowed us to know more about the story, the people, the building. And when we know more about the building, we know more about how phenomena like this can occur.
Even if we cannot find something parapsychological happening here, it's important because we will find something, and it's important because it can bring answers.
As scientists, Institute team members are concentrating on phenomena that can be quantified and analyzed. But those Brazilians with their roots still firmly entrenched in ancient beliefs warn that there is no way to measure the wrath of their ancestors.
So far, Sao Paulo's paranormal team has ruled out the first two possibilities on their list of 5. The haunting activity is not a hoax, they insist, and everyone they interviewed showed no signs of mental or physical impairment. So, the field is getting narrower, but the cause of the haunting is still not known.
Next, can science successfully return woolly mammoths from extinction? Later, how America's most famous psychic solved the riddle of the Sphinx.
Now, here are some of the stories Sightings is following in the news. Only 12 astronauts have made it as far as the moon, and the chance that any of us will be able to travel any farther may be remoter than Pluto. But thanks to the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, there will soon be a way for 1 million lucky people to send a small part of themselves all the way to Saturn.
In Pasadena, California, at Jet Propulsion Laboratory, the next great interplanetary observer is being readied for its October 1997 launch. Spacecraft Cassini is a joint effort between NASA and the European Space Agency. Its goal? To reach the rings of Saturn and explore its many intriguing moons. Many researchers have their eye on this one. Titan is Saturn's largest moon, half the size of Earth. It has a dense atmosphere, denser than Earth's, and for this reason, scientists like Planetary Society's Tom McDonough speculate that there could be life on Titan.
Titan is one of the most fascinating moons in the solar system because it's similar in a lot of ways to what Earth was like when we first got started as a planet and when life first got formed.
Titan's surface is hidden beneath a thick, smoggy cloud, believed to be similar to the haze over Los Angeles or Mexico City. In order to see through this cosmic veil to the moon below, Cassini is equipped with an unmanned probe called the Huygens probe. It will descend through the cloud, land on the surface of Titan, and snap the first pictures of this unexplored moon.
It's really important to send a probe to a place like Titan because it's so far away that we cannot see it very well with our telescopes. If we want to see what's really down on the surface, are there oceans and things like that, then you have to send a probe that penetrates through the atmosphere and lands on the surface.
NASA wants the public involved on this project. On their website, you can watch Cassini's progress. Every 4 minutes, live video images from the construction site at JPL are downloaded for you to see. And NASA is also creating a CD-ROM to be carried aboard Cassini with 1 million signatures from planet Earth. You can send your signature to Cassini Program JPL. Names will be included on a first-come basis until the CD-ROM is filled. In Siberia, Russia, 2 scientists from Kagoshima University in southern Japan have taken the first step toward recreating a creature that has been extinct for nearly 10,000 years. Recently, the researchers unearthed this baby woolly mammoth and now hope to extract DNA from the sperm of the Stone Age carcass and use it to fertilize an elephant egg. The result, they hope, will be a modern mammoth.
What we're able to do in space is at a standstill. And yet our genetic technology, this really seems to be the next big frontier.
Paleontologist Dr. Charles Pellegrino of Brookhaven National Laboratory is familiar with genetic manipulation like that proposed by the Japanese team. Pellegrino's own work formed the basis for the book and the movie Jurassic Park.
The genetic distance between a woolly mammoth and an elephant is probably about the genetic distance between a horse and a donkey, probably somewhere in the range of less than 1%. So you would only have to go in and basically re-edit less than 1% of the genetic code of an elephant that is already walking around today.
Many scientists question the feasibility of this process, but if indeed it is possible, a larger question needs to be addressed. Why should we resurrect such a creature?
It's almost like asking, why do we want to go to the moon? Why do we want to go to the bottom of the ocean? To me, bringing back a woolly mammoth or bringing back a dinosaur, it's the ultimate paleontological tool. It's the closest you can have to building a time machine and going back into time and studying these creatures face to face, nose to nose.
Although Pellegrino believes that such a genetic feat would be invaluable, he worries about the new mammoth's impact outside the scientific community.
There are probably industrial types around the world right now who are looking at this and saying, gee, if we can bring back extinct life forms, then we don't have to worry so much about endangering species. So let's cut down more of the Amazon rainforest. Or it might incite people to get a bit cocky about creating the conditions that lead to extinction in the first place. Each door you open to a tremendous new technology, it seems to be the yin-yang principle. We can either do wonderful things with it, or we can unleash horrors on a scale that we've never known before.
We'll have more stories in the news next time. Now, here's what's coming up as Sightings continues.
Police and family turn to the paranormal for help when a young woman mysteriously disappears.
We don't give up hope with Kristen, and we never will until we find her.
Then some surprising answers to the riddle of the Sphinx.
Kristen Smart has vanished without a trace. The police have no idea where she'll be found. And more police departments with nowhere to turn are turning to psychics. In this case, the family asked for a psychic who'd found people before. They asked for Kathleen Ray.
See, I felt he came out this door, and then he took a right, which headed towards the back of the building. So, but this is quite a desert area in here, because I felt that he was coming out of the road.
It starts with a vision.
I'd like to look around there.
Her view into another time, another dimension. The sheriff's fear will lead to a body and a killer.
These steps could certainly fit what I felt, what I saw in my mind.
In this case, psychic Kathleen Ray is trying to visualize what happened to a missing college student.
I heard a bell in the distance. Do you know where the nearest church or the nearest bell that would ring?
Considerably off campus.
Yeah, because I don't feel like it was near where she was. I feel it's at a distance.
Memorial Day, 1996. A holiday weekend the Smart family of Stockton, California will never forget. 19-year-old Kristen, beloved daughter, big sister, and a freshman at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo simply vanished.
Kristen was her oldest child, and hopefully she's still alive.
Since her disappearance, her family has continued to wrestle with conflicting feelings of hope and despair. They pray she will come home, but they are resigned that she will not.
Being 19, this was really just the beginning of life and getting a formalized education, higher education, and a lot of potential to do a lot of good things in life.
Kristen was 2 years older than me, and we like to do a lot of things together. We like to travel together, and she is like a real outgoing person, and she liked to just go out and have a lot of fun and just live life to the fullest.
We should have been here earlier, but here we are.
It's hard as a parent when you look back because the years go so fast, and all those people warn you ahead of time that they go so fast. But until you sit in the seat, you don't realize how quickly they went and how much you didn't really appreciate each and every moment.
We searched through the campus area.
Unlike other psychic detectives, Kathleen Ray wants to know every detail of the case. She believes it is then her job to fill in the blanks.
And we'll go to the spot where she was last seen by a witness.
Sometime after 2 a.m. on Saturday, May 25th, 1996, Kristen left a fraternity party with a girlfriend and a male student who offered to walk the two young women home. Kristen's friend says that around 2:30, she left Kristen at this corner on campus with the same man who reassured her that he would see Kristen to her dorm safely. Kristen never made it to her dorm and has not been seen nor heard from since.
She's certainly missing under suspicious circumstances, and possibly there has been foul play involved in her disappearance. According to the male student, she turned up to go up to her dorm. She's back up there, and he continued over here, which is his dorm. We believe that that's not the case.
It was not until 1 month later, on June 25th, that the Cal Poly campus police turned the Kristen Smart case over to the San Luis Obispo County Sheriff's Office.
We took their information that they had, and we re-interviewed everyone that had been initially involved in the case. That is, except for the one student that accompanied her back to the dorm. He refused to interview with us and continues to this day and is now being represented by an attorney.
In light of the fact that the last person to see Kristen was demonstrating decidedly suspicious behavior, sheriff's detectives launched a massive search effort. They searched the campus and surrounding countryside with helicopters, a dive team, a mounted posse, and over 250 volunteers.
In conjunction with using search and rescue personnel, we also used dogs that are trained to sniff out the smell of human remains.
The dogs found nothing until they searched the dorm room of the student who'd promised to see Kristen safely home.
Upon searching the last dormitory, the dogs alerted on his room. Not only did they alert on his room, but they alerted on the mattress that he slept on.
But still, no sign of Kristen. No physical evidence that a crime has been committed. That's where Kathleen Ray comes in. All of her psychic energy is directed toward finding Kristen Smart.
If you can find a perimeter and mark it off and say, okay, within this perimeter, do we have the things that we've seen so far? This one seems to have a lot of what we said and saw. So I would say this is where to start.
Working with detectives, Ray has come up with a series of psychic impressions, a random panorama of images, trees, wood, an abandoned building. The challenge is to find a real location that matches her vision.
It's like painting a picture. I first start by putting the different items in the picture, and then we have to find the focal point to go with that picture. Maybe like pins or corrals or something. Now these could be chicken pins, but also that may have more of the corral pin feeling to it. So let's go up there and take a look. I try to work just as methodical as the detectives do. I just go over the same trail they went over, and I just plug in the intuitive feelings to go with it to see if we can sharpen it any or narrow it down more.
But one of her intuitive feelings is difficult to disclose. It confirms the worst fears of the Smart family.
I feel that she suffocated. I don't feel a knife, I don't feel a gun, so I don't feel like it's a murder per se. I feel like it's an accidental death. He then somehow got a hold of a vehicle, and within 5 to 15 minutes, I feel like he's finished the job, so he didn't drive way out into the desert. I feel like he got rid of the body very quickly. That's why I know it's not buried, because it was too fast. He did it very fast.
One of the areas that Ray described had been a prime search area in the early days after Kristen's disappearance. But several smaller areas Ray pinpointed have yet to be searched.
You know, I felt that little narrow road with a row of trees along it, and that's over there in that area. Right. I also felt bushes that were sort of artichoke height, and you say there's avocados have just been planted, and I noticed those yesterday being that height. And then now we've since been told there is an old abandoned building there, which I was looking for.
I certainly wasn't aware of the old building over there, which we found out today from the campus authorities.
And her body doesn't have to be right by it, but it's in this area, you know. So everything seems to be coming over in this area. Even the artichoke fields and the cow barns have been torn down.
Sensitive developments within the case are occurring almost daily, and Sightings will try to keep you updated on the detective's progress. In the meantime, the Smart family remains in limbo, coping as best they can.
Each day just seems like an eternity as far as finding out, what's happened with our Kristen.
Love you. Wish you were here. Bye.
We don't give up hope with Kristen, and we never will until we find her. But we have given up, each of us in this family, a life as we've known it. Life does need to go on, and it's very important that we try to do that. But at the same time, we've all given up a piece of our heart. And it'll never be the same.
As of this broadcast, Kristen Smart is still missing, and the case remains unsolved. If you have any information about her whereabouts, please contact the San Luis Obispo Sheriff's Department.
Next, hard science supports a mystic's vision of the origin of the Sphinx.
In the geology lay the key to this reversal of history.
The Great Sphinx is among the Earth's greatest cultural mysteries. In the 1930s, self-styled prophet Edgar Cayce predicted that the secrets of the Sphinx would be revealed sometime in the 1990s, and Cayce, it turns out, may have been right.
There is no more powerful emblem of the mystery of the past than the Great Sphinx of Egypt.
According to ancient Egyptian mythology, the Sphinx was a living being with a human head and the body of a lion. Those who dared approach the Sphinx were presented with a riddle, and those who could not solve it were destroyed. Like its mythological counterpart, the Great Stone Sphinx in Egypt poses an ancient riddle for humankind. Who built it and why? And now there is a new challenge in the riddle of the Sphinx. Not only is the how and why of the Sphinx being called into question, but also the when. Could this great monument predate Egypt, predate, in fact, all known civilizations? Edgar Cayce thought so. He was an American mystic, one of the most accurate of all modern psychics. Known as the sleeping prophet, Cayce's revelations, while in a trance-like state, fill hundreds of volumes and are housed at his foundation in Virginia Beach. During a series of readings in the 1930s, Cayce prophesied at length about the monuments on the Giza Plateau, revealing what he believed to be the origin of the Sphinx.
It was like he was in the deep unconscious mind, and he was accessing the universal consciousness that contained all wisdom. And when they asked him specifically about ancient Egypt, he said that this place was built in the year 10,500 BC, and that these dates would be supported somewhere around 1998.
Mainstream archaeologists date the Sphinx and the Great Pyramid at Giza to 2500 BC, when they were built to honor the pharaohs of the 4th dynasty. Cayce's date of 10,500 BC is dismissed by mainstream science, but a few researchers are coming forward, as Cayce predicted, to support his unorthodox view.
I could see that in the geology lay the key to this total reversal of history.
John Anthony West is a self-described rogue Egyptologist. He believes that the pattern of erosion on the Sphinx rules out the mainstream date of 2500 BC.
In a nutshell, the theory is that the Sphinx has been weathered by water, and specifically by rain falling down over the plateau over many thousands of years. You look at the Sphinx and you see that it's this rounded profile with deep fissures going down the rock face. This can only be produced by rainfall falling over the plateau.
Rain erosion in the Sahara is impossible now. But before 10,000 BC, this part of Africa was a fertile grassland. So, West points out in his book, if the Sphinx has been eroded by water, it must date back before 10,000 BC. The same conclusion, using different evidence, has also been reached by authors Robert Bauval and Graham Hancock.
Help us understand the mirror image of the monuments at Giza and the sky at certain points in time, because that's key to understanding the entire concept you're putting forward.
There is only one time where the image of the sky locks with the image on the ground. And this occurs, and only occurs, in 10,500 BC.
Boval and Hancock have discovered that the Egyptian sky in 10,500 BC bears an uncanny resemblance to the layout of the monuments on the Giza Plateau.
10,500 BC, this is when the Sphinx is gazing directly at his own image, the constellation of Leo. And if we are to turn 90 degrees and face due south, we would see the 3 stars of Orion's belt in a pattern that mimics exactly the pattern of the pyramid on the ground. So we have here a perfect conjunction taking place only and only in 10,500 BC.
But history books teach us that in 10,500 BC, our human ancestors were still in a primitive state, incapable of the advanced astronomical and engineering skills necessary to build great monuments.
We're suggesting that the entire foundation on which our notion of human history rests is faulty. The evidence is beginning to suggest to us that a whole chapter is missing from the human story, that all the legends of a great lost civilization that haunt the myth memories of mankind may be true. One thing is for sure, there was an enormous, horrendous cataclysm at the end of the last ice age, and this brings us to that date of 10,500 BC that we focus on in the monuments. Something happened to the world at the end of the last ice age of sufficient magnitude to have wiped out a whole civilization, and what we're arguing is that the traces of that lost civilization may be what confronts us at Giza.
The new findings of West, Boval, and Hancock support Casey's 60-year-old predictions to the letter. Even more startling is another one of Casey's early prophecies, that the record of a lost civilization would be found in a hidden chamber under the left paw of the Sphinx. In May of 1993, just such a chamber was found. It has yet to be opened.
Edgar Casey said that the lost records of Atlantis would be found in a chamber between the paws of the Sphinx. Our seismographs detected a chamber between the paws of the Sphinx. What's in that chamber, absolutely we don't know. But certainly our findings seem to corroborate certain of his key prophecies.
He prophesied that that hall of records would be found again and would be opened between 1996 and 1998.
If there is a hall of records, and there's something in there, what do you think it is?
We think that all the indications suggest that a time capsule was deliberately concealed at Giza in Egypt with the intention that it should be found one day, a time capsule that would abolish all ambiguity over this matter and make it absolutely certain of what had gone before and of what we have forgotten. But a time capsule that was not intended to be found by barbarians, that was hidden away very carefully to be found, as the ancient texts say, by the fully worthy. Perhaps that's who we are. Perhaps that time has come. Perhaps that's the decision and the awe-inspiring prospect that we confront in the near future.
The right to open the chamber under the paws of the Sphinx is something of a political game these days. And the Egyptian government is holding all the cards. Only they know when and if the secrets of the Sphinx will be revealed to the world.
This is a mystery. Next, cattle mutilations are killing a lot more than livestock in New Mexico.
It's a significant economic impact on the ranchers.
Sightings has continued to follow developments in the San Luis Valley of Colorado and New Mexico, where bizarre livestock mutilations have been plaguing ranchers since 1967. It is an unexplained and gruesome phenomenon that just won't go away. They may call this part of New Mexico God's country, but if you're a cattle rancher here, this is hell on earth. Bizarre livestock death, commonly known as cattle mutilation, continues to occur with alarming regularity. Recently, a sightings team returned to the San Luis Valley to investigate a rash of new reports.
Somebody or something is killing these animals. And the shock to me was seeing these animals lie there, and they looked like they were just sleeping. But yet, their tongues were gone, the sexual organs were gone, the blood was gone.
Gail Stalen is a New Mexico-based livestock mutilation investigator. She has worked on over 50 cases, including 8 in 1996 alone. She is now concentrating her efforts in the Taos area, where the most recent mutilations have taken place.
The authorities right now, I do not believe, are handling mutilations in a proper way, or let's say a more professional way.
What I hope to change is to impose a forensic protocol on the cattle mutilations. I would like to see an organized response from the government to address this issue, to investigate cattle mutilations as a crime scene.
John Paternoster made the cattle mutilations a central issue in his recent bid for district attorney of Taos.
It's a growing mystery. It's a significant economic impact on the ranchers, and they deserve a response.
Carlos Trujillo is a cattle rancher in Peñasco, a remote town south of Taos. Just before our arrival, Trujillo had found his prize bull dead. Organs, including the heart, had been removed with an eerie surgical precision. Trujillo told local field investigator Michael Abbey that he was dissatisfied with the county inspector's findings. This was not the work of a coyote.
I talked to the inspector personally, and he said that it was some kind of a predator or coyote. Well, if them coyotes have knives like that, I mean, we're in a heap of trouble. We're in a heap of trouble.
Like many local ranchers, Trujillo doesn't know where to turn next.
It hurts. It hurts in the pocket.
The ranchers are frustrated, there's no question about that, about the lack of any kind of a response, a uniform, significant response from government.
As part of this investigation, Sightings traveled to Albuquerque to try and get some answers from John Wortman, the director of the New Mexico Livestock Board, the state agency charged with investigating cattle mutilations.
I can't say that we've actually determined the specific cause of death in any of those. Some we've got a higher probability of that maybe they died of natural causes or struck by lightning or were killed by a predator or whatever. Yes, there are some of those that have been reported that we just have no explanation, but that's not to say that there was some deep, dark mystery about why they died. We just don't have a reason for why they were killed. We haven't been as careful with crime scenes in some of these mutilations as you would like to have if you're going to try to find evidence. And in some of these cases, there's very little evidence there. And when you walk in there and start rolling these animals around trying to figure out why they died, you destroy whatever evidence is there.
In those cases that remain unresolved, the Livestock Board believes that a conventional explanation will be found.
We think that there are individuals out there that are mutilating for whatever reasons, either ritual activities or vengeance or just pure vandalism.
The assertion by the New Mexico Livestock Board that there's cult activity behind these cattle mutilations or malicious vandalism, I have to say, is based, from my knowledge, on insufficient or completely absent evidence. It seems to me that everybody's got a lot of theories, but nobody's got a lot of hard evidence.
One prevailing theory connects the mutilations to UFOs.
Well, as an official here in response to the aliens are taking our cattle hypothesis, I understand there are people out there that firmly believe that. And I guess I can't prove that that's not true. We have no evidence that would point that direction. And at this point, we're not pursuing that as a possibility of the problem.
Eventually, better forensic procedures may help officials cope with the mutilations mystery. But for now, it's an economic burden for the ranchers and a mystery to the community at large.
We don't know. And until we do know from hard evidence obtained at the scene in a forensically responsible way, we're just guessing.
Gail Stalin isn't waiting for the wheels of government to turn in her favor. She takes this issue personally and continues to fight for the ranchers.
I'm going to continue investigating these mutilations because I truly believe that eventually we will find the answers.
In November of 1996, John Paternoster was elected district attorney for Taos and the surrounding county, and he's vowed to continue his fight to get to the bottom of the mutilations mystery.
If you've had a paranormal experience, please write to us at Sightings. Sightings can also be contacted at America Online at keyword sightings. Download images, sounds, and QuickTime clips from Sightings episodes. On the internet, access information about sightings and the paranormal at sci-fi.com/sightings.
Until next time, remember, no mystery is closed to an open mind. For Sightings, I'm Tim White.
Next on Sci-Fi, Dark Shadows.
My name is Darian Fox, and I'm still the government's see-through guy. We go out and get the bad guys, the bad girls, and runaway science projects, and they still never see it coming.
The Invisible Man, a Sci-Fi original series. Disappearing Fridays at 8 on Sci-Fi.